Welcome back, everybody, to another episode here at the War Room Live. I'm your host, The Political Offender. Thank you for stopping in and giving me your time today. Make sure to follow my page, The Patriot on TV on X, or The Political Offender. Like the channel if you want to support me, as well. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about the show. You guys know I don't like to waste your time here, so let's go ahead and dive right into the news today. Our first story, this is a big one. We see Iran has officially announced a $30,000 bounty, cash on the table, for the capture or killing of a United States military personnel. And the condition is only if the United States launches a ground invasion, apparently. So they're not being shy about it. They've made it public now. And I want you to hear this clearly as well. They're explicitly doubling the reward to $60,000 if it's carried out by what they call, quote, courageous Iranian woman. So if you think about that framing for a second, it's not just a bounty, it's a recruitment drive wrapped up in this ideological repackaging of what they want their country and their citizens to do to fight us. So this is pretty wild. As we know, this is amid all the escalating regional tensions, where every other week we're one drone strike away from something much bigger. Now, the timing isn't accidental here. Iran knows what's happening in Washington, and they know what's being discussed behind closed doors about military options. So, obviously, Iran is testing, and they're putting down a marker for their citizens to start targeting U.S. service members with a bounty. Now, this is pretty wild. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that down below in the comment section. Obviously, this isn't just defense for the Iranians. This is provocation dressed up as defense. So there's a massive difference there, in my opinion. So Iran knows that America has the capability to flatten them if we decide to actually do it. They don't have air superiority. They don't have a navy that can leave the Persian Gulf. They have asymmetric tools, which is proxies, missiles, and propaganda. So we see this bounty is pure psychological warfare against our troops, and it's also a signal to American soldiers that their life, it does have a price tag on it. And this really does tell you about the collapse of deterrence messaging from Washington as well. Iran would not be doing this, and they would not be bold enough to announce this publicly if they believed for 1 second that the United States had a unified, coherent, credible military posture. But we don't. We have a very fractured government, a military establishment that's been neutered in a sense. I mean, they say we're better than we've ever been, but according to a lot of sources right now, there's a lot of rifts going on inside of the military. And we'll show you a picture later that relates to that. But what's wild here is the gender framing of this bounty as well. They're doubling the payment for women. We see that women are increasingly being involved in operational roles in Iran. They're using female operatives. And with that, I mean, it's kind of like a recruiting tool. We'll pay you double than we pay the guys if you can do this for us. So pretty wild there. Pretty crazy. With that, let's move into our next piece of news that we have for you. And this one's a big one too. So Washington Post broke this morning. Gulf states, and we're talking about Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, they're seriously considering kicking the United States military out. And they're not being quiet about it. They're actually genuinely in backroom conversations right now considering removing American military bases from their soil. And the stated reason is they've totally lost faith in Trump's Iran war strategy. So this is wild, man. I did not predict this to happen after Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey signed a deal. So we know the Gulf Cooperation Council states that they've had U.S. military installations on their territory for roughly 70 years. We're talking strategic air bases in Qatar, naval headquarters in Bahrain, and forward operating logistics hubs in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So these aren't small operations. These are the spine of American power projection in the Middle East. And now with all of this craziness that's going on, they're not even trusting President Trump anymore, and they're thinking about taking out all of our military bases and telling us to leave. So apparently these Saudi leadership and Emirati officials have explicitly told their intermediaries that they no longer trust Trump's Iran contingency planning, and the language they're saying is no longer trust is what they say. So that's the exact words from them, and that's not a good signal, guys. I actually did not expect this to be coming from the Gulf states, but they've got to make a stand somewhere. They're going to be the ones facing the real damage from this if Iran decides to attack them completely and destroy their entire country. It's going to be them. It's not going to be the United States who gets hit first, and I'm sure Iran's portrayed that message to them, like we've mentioned before. So the energy traders are already pricing in exactly what happens if the U.S. bases get removed, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be a lot of regional instability with potential blockade scenarios in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait continuing, the Strait of Hormuz continuing, maybe the end of a petrodollar arrangement. There is a lot of different angles this can go. But with that, I just wanted to share that story with you because that was a pretty big story that came out today. Let's go ahead and dive into our next piece we have. So on Friday night in Mar-a-Lago, Trump's basically talking to law enforcement officers, and he says it out loud in a speech that after we finish defeating Iran, which is being very, very badly defeated, pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. So this is not a negotiating position. This is what he said, full stop. Like he said, the Strait of Hormuz will be a U.S. territory. So then he even goes further and he says, essentially, that's what it is. We have a blockade. No ships get through unless we want them to. And he promises the oil prices are coming, quote, way down. Of course he does. So, to be clear here, the President of the United States just announced an intention to literally annex a body of water that's been, international waters forever, and declare it American soil, and then control all of the shipping through it as well. Not as a naval strategy, as a literal territory. So on Saturday morning yesterday, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garbati responded to all this, and he said, no ceremony, no diplomatic hedging, he writes. The Strait of Hormuz has been Iranian and is Iranian and will remain Iranian. This strait will only be closed and opened under Iran's command. So that was their response. And this is the key part as well. He calls the whole thing delusional. He says Washington does not accept the reality of defeat and needs to stop indulging in its delusions. So this is the state of play we're at right now, folks. This is, I believe, getting a lot more escalatory than it is de-escalatory. No doubt. And now the usual suspects on CNBC and CNN and all them will say, Trump, he's just floating an extreme scenario. It's just negotiating theater. That's the official line they're going to kind of give you, what I've seen from them. But I don't think this is pre-midterm theater. I mean, it could be to try to remind voters that, Trump doesn't back down from American enemies, that he's willing to say anything that he wants to these people and that he'll protect American interests, even if it means upsetting the international order. It's kind of the spin, but I mean, we're watching a president making demands that his military actually really can't enforce. And everyone in the Pentagon pretty much knows it as well. So if we start with the obvious, 6 months of the war, and what's the condition on the ground? I mean, Iran isn't badly defeated. Iran is dug in. Iran is escalating. Iran is finding these workarounds. And there's no American military victory trajectory visible on an honest map right now. So the war hasn't gone the way Washington assumed it would go, obviously. And now Trump is announcing he'll declare the Hormuz Strait an American territory after Iran is defeated. But Iran isn't being defeated. So this isn't a promise. It's a fantasy. It's really a check written on a military account that's completely overdrawn. So Iran understands that the U.S. doesn't actually have the stomach for a full-scale operation and occupation of the Persian Gulf. Yes, we have the Navy. Yes, we can blockade ports, but occupying and controlling a strategic, vital waterway, okay, against an enemy that's willing to actually bleed for it, and that's right next to their country. It's a 20-year commitment nobody in Washington has the political will for anymore. It's just Iran knows this, and they're betting on American exhaustion. So that's kind of what's going on right now. The Iran Foreign Ministry spokesman just said this as well. Despite U.S. obstruction, the talks that have made positive progress over the past 3 weeks, and an agreement has been reached on the shipping route map. So, and if you read the sentence again, it says, despite U.S. obstruction. So we are actively obstructing shipping, right? We're blocking the imports and exports from Iranian ports. And Iran is doing what any, I guess, coordination would do, and it's finding the gaps. It's working with the neighbors. It's building alternate routes. So we'll see if they're willing to withstand longer. I mean, they said they're going to wait until Trump is out of office to make any kind of negotiation deal. So we'll see how that goes. With that, let's continue on to our next piece of news we have for you this evening. And we see that the USS George Washington, it's a Nimitz-class carrier, okay? It's actually been the backbone of Pacific deterrence for a decade plus. It's nuclear-powered. It costs roughly $13 billion, and it carries about 65 aircraft. Now, her strike group alone is actually more firepower than most nations' entire militaries, and that carrier is now leaving the Pacific theater right now in real time and is actually heading to the Middle East to relieve the Abraham Lincoln because, we're still throwing money and hardware at the Iran situation like it's a slot machine that's going to somehow pay out. So we see this creates a pretty big coverage gap. I mean, there's a window. It could be weeks. It could be months, depending on the logistics in which, carrier rotates in next. But this is where the Western Pacific, home to Taiwan, the South China Sea, some of the most economically vital and geopolitically explosive real estate on the planet will be empty of American carrier presence from the war now. So obviously China is watching this happen in real time. They have satellites, they have analysts, and they're literally watching our ships move on screens right now, calculating the angles of, maybe what they can get away with now with Taiwan, now that there's no nuclear powered carrier there. So with that, I mean, we know that this is just going to continue to drain our resources, and it's just never going to stop. From a region where, not much, we don't get much out of that region, if you've noticed. But anyways, okay, I'm going to continue on because I'm ranting now. All right, so this is the picture I was going to show you guys earlier, and this is what I'm talking about with the U.S. servicemen and women. So what happened here is U.S. servicemen in the Middle East put these protest messages in dust on a drone flap, including, quote, "be a good goy and do what Israel tells you to do." And then the other quote is Operation Epstein Fury, all this for the Holy Land. So we can see even the troops know that this is insanity for us to be attacking Iran and wasting our time and vital resources over it. And let alone they know their lives are, pretty much left up to whatever military command chooses them to live or die. So you can see that this is very interesting that this is getting out now. And this is a pretty big breach in my opinion, because you start seeing the cracks with ships sailors wanting to jump off the ships into the sea, and then now they're writing on drone flaps and dust that be a good goy and do what Israel tells you to do. It can tell you the narrative and the actual resentment the American people have against these endless foreign entanglements that literally George Washington told us to not get into. So with that, I just wanted to show you that quick photo there, and let's dive into our next piece of news. And we see this is happening again in Ceuta, weeks after more than 60,000 military-aged men from sub-Saharan Africa stormed the border fence into Spain's tiny North African enclave of Ceuta. We see thousands more are massing again right now on the Moroccan side near the name is Nadek. So Morocco rolled out heavy security after the social media rumors claimed the border was about to open. And publicly available video from late Saturday into early Sunday now shows swarms of people pressing forward inside Ceuta itself. There's 80,000 Spanish residents packed into 19 square kilometers, as we mentioned before. And this is getting really bad because doctors are logging these diseases that are coming through: tuberculosis, unexplained fevers, physical assaults. And we know that Italy has already suspended the Schengen free travel with Spain until the security risk disappears. And we know what's actually going on here is the second phase of a deliberate weaponized migration operation, in my opinion, allegedly. And if you look at the pattern here, you see military-aged males, coordinated timing, social media amplification, and the complete refusal of Morocco to stop the flow until it extracts a political concessions from Madrid. And this is quite literally hybrid warfare. Exactly what 22 EU leaders already warned about after the first wave. The goal is to overload a Spanish enclave until the socialist government either folds on migration policy or collapses under the weight of its own border ideology. So this is pretty crazy. Let's show you some footage here that we have. And this is coming from the Clash report on X. Shout out to them. We're just going to kind of skip through and just show you. So you can see this is what the quick walkthrough looks. Look how many people that is thousands and thousands of people again breaking into that. How crazy is that? So with that, let's go ahead and dive into our next piece of news we have for you this evening. We have Israeli jets screamed over southern Lebanon and flattened 2 homes. And it actually ended up killing 11 people, 3 of them being children. Now, this is the highest body count in a single day since the so-called ceasefire with Hezbollah that kicked back in June. And here's the kicker about this. Neither one of those villages sits inside the 231 square mile security zone that Israel still occupies. An Israeli spokesman claimed that they were hitting, quote, Hezbollah infrastructure because their soldiers got attacked in the Ali Tahrir area, and an underground command center Hezbollah has been running for months, is what they said it was. And Lebanon's prime minister called it extremely dangerous and said it risks blowing up the whole peace process. And he pointed out the dead weren't military targets, it was women and children, not bunkers. So, wow, guys, this is where we're at. And it just, up to high heaven, this smells, okay? Like just trash. And from all of this, we know that the State Department from the United States has said, you guys are insane. You guys need to pull out of Lebanon. You agreed to this. You signed on to this. Pull out of there. You people are insane. And now we have the biggest strike that's happened in months in Lebanon just over the weekend. And, you know, Netanyahu and then their other minister, Katz, they don't care. They said, you know, we listen to America, but we have our own strategic interests, you know, even though we're subsidized by the whole American people and the taxpayers, but we don't care what you people think. And thank the Lord that 8 nations, Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Qatar, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan, fired off a joint statement today slamming Israel's outright rejection of President Trump's comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. So we see this is the roadmap that's endorsed by the UN Security Council Resolution 2803. They zeroed in on Israel's, quote, declared rejection of the roadmap that was supposed to finish the job, plus Israel's flat no to any Palestinian statehood. These countries say Israel's stance is a direct repudiation of the whole plan and that it jeopardizes the implementation, and also it puts the blame for blocking peace squarely on Jerusalem. In the roadmap itself, Palestinian factions already accepted it. It calls for the decommissioning of weapons at the same time Israeli forces pull back, rolling in an international stabilization force, handing over to a national committee for Gaza, and as well as restarting the construction. So, as we know, like I said, Israel said last week, no withdrawal until Hamas is genuinely disarmed, every last weapon. As long as he's prime minister, there will be no Palestinian state, not in Gaza, not in the West Bank. Well, this guy is just from hell, man. We send him billions of dollars in taxpayer money, and he still puts the finger on our face. And President Trump bombs Iran for this country. And they just give a middle finger to our face, and especially Trump. So these same 8 countries, we already know they were in deep, basically, about this Board of Peace process earlier this year, and some of them even invited to help run the show. Now that Israel says not until the terrorists are actually, don't have any weapons, they pivot to condemnation and they demand the U.S. strong arm its closest ally. That's what we'll say. They're our closest ally, of course. I don't really know how that works. So, we'll see what they're willing to do. I mean, Netanyahu looks at this and says no deal because I guess he thinks that every peace process that leaves with rockets and tunnels intact, it ends with dead Israelis. Like, it's okay. Okay, Netanyahu, then just go use your own money, man. Because we're sick of bombing women and children into oblivion, you scum from hell. With that, everybody, let's move into our last piece of news for the evening. And this one will just put a smile on your face, even though this is Satan's second in command. Netanyahu, I think, is first in command. So we see Dr. Anthony Fauci's attorney just told Senator Ron Johnson's subcommittee that the former NIAID director will not sit in for a private transcribed interview about the COVID catastrophe. And this lands days after the Senate Homeland Security Committee voted along party lines to hold Fauci in contempt for his July 29th performance, where he took the fifth roughly 112 times. Now, this is meanwhile former ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran, just went public and admitted that his early 2021 Nightline investigation into the Wuhan lab leak was gutted the day it was supposed to air after the script was sent to Fauci for review. My name's Fauci. I love killing beagles. And I hate children. We're going to vaccinate all the children with the cancer viruses, the spike proteins. All right, I'm going to stop. So, anyways, I might actually have something wrong with me. But anyways, I mean, this guy really, you guys know how much I hate this guy. So, this is just a very ugly pattern of a man in a machine that treated the American people, like I've said before, like lab rats, and then demanded absolute immunity when the cage door started rattling. And he might get away with it too, so I hope he doesn't. This guy literally spent years as an unelected face of national panic, the guy who told you he was science himself, and the guy who funded gain-of-function research that somehow walked out of a Wuhan lab. So, also emails this guy shows him telling Francis Collins to read it, then destroy it. And now he denies to have any conversation about any of it. So, with that, everybody, I appreciate you all stopping in and giving me your time today. Please smash that like button, hit the sub button if you like the channel. Support the channel. That helps out big time. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about the show. I'm your host, The Political Offender, and you're watching The War Room Live. I'll catch you guys in the next one.